Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathan Skinner and today we're looking at the carpet flooring kit for the Daimler V8 250, also applicable obviously to the Daimler 2.5 V8 as they're effectively the same. Now this is quite a rare carpet set in a couple of ways. One, it's a manual gearbox carpet set, which you barely got any manual gearbox cars in the Daimler V8 250. The majority of them were automatic gearboxes and the majority of them were right-hand drives. This is still a right-hand drive set, but it is a manual set. We do have the patterns for manual and automatic, left-hand drive and right-hand drive, so we do have all the variants, but just so you know, the majority of the cars did leave with right-hand drive specifications and an automatic gearbox, but this is the manual right-hand drive. It's also worth noting as well, this specific kit has been tailor custom made, suitable for the car, which has got XJ40 front seats in it. It hasn't got the standard Daimler V8 250 front seats in it, so we've made a couple of changes which I will detail, but they mainly affect the front floors, where normally you get cutaways in the front floors for the seat runner elements. Here you get a little sort of cut up there and a cut up there, and same again on the right hand front floor. And then also the rear floors, they didn't have these holes normally in them, and they did have sort of a cutaway in the corners of the front floors, as I've just tried to illustrate with my finger there. But these have been custom made to fit an XJ40. The overall shape of them is exactly the same, it's just where cutaways have been added or removed. So these holes here on the rear floors, for example, are now applicable for the XJ40 front seat. So just bear that in mind. These are the sorts of resources that we can give you for your restoration. Obviously we have the sort of standardized patterns that we have for the Daimler carpets, but then we know about the XJ40 conversions, as that's a very popular conversion for the seats of both the Daimlers and the Mark IIs, and so we know what to do with the carpet sets accordingly to make sure that they fit correctly, so just bear that in mind. This particular kit has been done in dark blue, it's been done in wool, which we always do our Jaguar and Daimler carpet sets in. It's the most premium automotive wool you can get on the market for this era and specification of cars. Just bear that in mind. Obviously always ask for samples. We're very proud of the fact we use the high quality raw materials, which a lot of other companies don't necessarily use, and therefore we're happy to show and prove this by sending you samples. So it's been done in dark blue and it's been edged in dark blue as well, leather cloth, as original for this era of car. And I've roughly laid it out as it sits in the car. So you've got the front of the car up there, left hand, right hand, then the rear of the car here. So this is the carpet set as we supply it, obviously with the aforementioned changes for the XJ40 seats. You'll also potentially want a underfelt soundproofing kit for underneath these carpets. Remember, all carpets are patterned and designed to have a certain thickness underneath, so even if you're updating to modern day Dynamat soundproofing versions, obviously other brands are available, we still recommend using our felt kit because it adds the right level of thickness underneath to get the best fit, but also gives you a nice soft underfoot feel to it all. So let's just give a basic review of what's included in the kit. So carpet set's sold as a carpet set, the underfelts are sold separately, the fixings are sold separately. All of those pieces, the carpets, felts and fixings, are included as standard in our trim kit, and it does work out significantly cheaper to buy a trim kit than it does to buy every item within that trim kit separately, but we can do that if you want. When we do say separately, we do sell them in car sets, so a carpet set is sold as a carpet set, basically. Now what we've got is, just to very briefly go over it before I go into more details, you've got a pair of front floors. So you've got the left hand front floor, right hand front floor, obviously the cutaways there for the throttle accelerator pedal. You've then got the sort of main gearbox tunnel there. Obviously this is a manual, so you get this raised dome section there, and then there the front sort of gearbox bits. That there is kind of a hidden away carpet piece up in the sort of footwell toe board area. You can kind of see the curve that sits in. I'll show you in the book there. You've then got all the kind of cross membry pieces that sit in between the front and rear floors. Now, always a subject to debate about what materials are used, so we make sure that we cover all of our bases. We supply vinyl and we supply carpet, and then you have this little section that sits just sort of back from the main gearbox stick area there. You then have the prop shaft tunnel at the back here. You have the left and right rear floor carpets as mentioned earlier, they have been heavily altered to fit the XJ40s. You do get this cutaway here, obviously on the right hand side, for the handbrake, safety brake, that gets pulled up from that section there, but obviously it would swap sides for the left hand drive cars. You obviously get the sill carpets with the basic cutaway for, again, the cross member sections there. And then you get these sections here which kind of go round the bottom and side sections of the rear seats, so they kind of bend up and round onto the sill. Hard to describe, but that's where they go in the car. So let's start at the very front. Got the front floors. They obviously cover the majority of the front floor. You have the heel pad, they're bound all the way around. You have the cutaways obviously for the throttle and for the, I believe it's a dip switch up in the corner there. The heel pads in this particular case are the Storvik material, match the colours, so that's dark blue. For Storvik, we either do it in Storvik if the colour is available. It does have a decent range of colours, but not massively wide. For all of the other colours, we'll always try and tune it in with your edging of your leather cloth. So if we can't get Storvik, we will do some plastic heel pads covered in the leather cloth to make sure it all matches up. They're the details that we go to as standard. So right hand obviously has the cutaway there. It's all the rubber backed super wool, as some people refer to it. Often referred to as Wilton wool over in the USA, but it's strictly speaking not Wilton wool. Do talk to me about those details. Wilton wool is very specific to sort of Bentleys and Rolls Royces. We can supply it if you want, but commonly, unfortunately, the American market seems to confuse what we refer to as wool as Wilton wool incorrectly. So they are talking about the same material, just FYI on that one. And by all means, pick my brain on it. I could bore anyone to death on the differences. But yeah, so it's the normal sort of wool, super wool, rubber backing, etc. You then get this section here, which is hard to describe, but it goes, this is actually looking at a Mark II, but it's the same principle. There you are, you can just about make it out there. So it kind of curves up next to the gearbox side and the front floor, kind of in that gap there. So that's what that piece is there. I've now lost my place for the Daimler. There we go, right. So that's those. Then you've got the gearbox. So you've got the main gearbox section. Obviously this is where the gear stick sticks out of. It's all sewn together, creates this sort of mound effect here. Then you have the left and right front gearboxes, just to show you. I've actually got a manual photo in here, so that's obviously the dome section that we've been referring to there. It will elongate more once there's something underneath it. Obviously at the moment it's just sat there proud, but once you put the console and gearbox underneath, it will start filling out a bit more. And then these carpet pieces here are these sections here either side of the gearbox tunnel there. One of them will have a cutaway in there for where the dim switch pedal element goes in there. Moving further back, you obviously have the cross members which sit directly below the kind of front seat sections there and go from left to right, which is where the sills have the cutaway here. So you get those sections there. Then you have the rear floors with obviously the cutaway, as I mentioned, for the XJ40 seats, and the cutaway there for the handbrake on the right side. And then those pieces I mentioned before. So now just a bit of background on the concept of carpets and edging. You'll notice that a decent amount of them are edged, but not all of them. And the concept being that whenever anything's in the car, no raw edge is on show. It's either hidden underneath an adjacent panel or it's hidden underneath an adjacent carpet which does have edging on it. So a nice simple example is this prop shaft here. You've got edging on the front edge there, but on the left and right edges you don't have any edging. And what we'll have done is we'll make that piece slightly wider than it needs to be, because it loops over the prop shaft and then tucks down onto the flat part of the rear floors, and it will tuck underneath the edges of the rear floors which are edged. Therefore you're creating this nice seamless finish between pieces. Same again on the sills, none of those pieces are edged, and that's a great example because the top part sits underneath the door sill element of things, often have chrome finishes on them and things like that. And then the bottom piece will again go down onto the front floor, and then it will get covered up by the adjacent bound edges of the front, of the rear and front floor carpets there. So you're creating a nice seamless finish between carpet pieces. And that means that you're getting complete car coverage. So, you know, these cars were inconsistently made. Nowhere near the accuracy that we use these days with our digital CNC machines there. So what we've tried to do is, obviously we started off with very accurate patterns. My father was a pattern maker, that's how he's so good at, and this is why we have the reputation we do for our accuracy of patterns. But then we use logic and common sense. We know how these cars go together. We've worked with various very high-end restorers for almost 50 years now, and so they'll talk to us about how these bits and bobs go, and they go, right, well, give us a bit more on the left and right edges that aren't bound, and it allows you to tuck underneath and gives you complete car coverage, and allows a bit more flexibility to allow for, shall we say, the idiosyncrasies of how these cars were kind of made originally. So these are the sorts of levels of detail that we go to with these sorts of things. So we often get asked about carpets and edging and unbound edges, and that's the concept. You shouldn't really have to trim anything back. Occasionally you'll want to trim an unbound edge back, but very rarely. Often you just hide it out the way underneath an adjacent bound edge. You may need to cut holes into some of the carpets, for example, like I mentioned there on the gearboxes there for the dip switch, and we don't do that, and we don't do that deliberately because it's an easy thing for you to do at your end. You don't need to do any sewing or anything like that after, and so it's always best to make sure it fits your car. It's not us being lazy. It would take us seconds to do it on the CNC machine to cut that hole, but as soon as a hole is cut, you're dictated by the position of that hole. And so we use common sense and experience with these sorts of things to make sure that our kits are as flexible as they can be, being pre-made. And this is a notion that we carry through all of our business with all of the kits that we supply, and something that a lot of other people don't do, and they don't even understand that concept until it's fully explained to them, which is often too late. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, enough on that. I think I've covered the details of the carpets there. Please do remember to read the description below. I do these videos off the top of my head, and I'll undoubtedly forget something, but there's also some useful links to other videos for other parts that you might need for your Daimler restoration, but also other links to obviously where to inquire on our website about these parts and how to buy them, and also some good links to our website blog handbook area, which gives nice details on not just deep dives on cars and their car interiors, but also what I've been sort of touching on, you know, our ethos as a business, why we are the best at what we do, and why trying to compare other suppliers out there can be extremely tricky. It's not comparing apples with apples. The fact of the matter is, interior trim is the least standardized element of any restoration, and to just think that you can go to all suppliers and purely base your choice on price and availability is well, naive, unfortunately, for lack of a better word. So just bear that in mind. When it comes to interior trim, you really need to do your homework. This is why I've done this YouTube channel. This is why our website is filled with photos detailing our work, and customers from all around the world with our parts fitted. We can show and prove that our parts fit well, whereas a lot of other companies cannot. Anyway, hope you found that useful. Please remember to like, subscribe and comment underneath, and please pass on to any other classic car enthusiasts out there, and be sure to tune in next time. Cheers.